Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. You know, there are Holocaust stories that leave us heartbroken. There are others that leave us inspired. And then there are the rare stories that somehow accomplish both at once. Stories that remind us of the depth of human evil, but also of the extraordinary strength, the courage, and the resilience of the human spirit. Today, I am deeply, deeply honored to welcome Dr. Mark Olsky and Dr. Hana Berger Moran. Welcome, the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being two individuals whose very lives are living testaments to one of the most astonishing stories of survival to emerge really from the Holocaust. Their story is captured in the New York Times bestseller Born Survivors by acclaimed biographer Wendy Holden. Described by Booklist as an astonishing and deeply moving work, the book recounts the unbelievable true story of three young Jewish women, Priska, Rachel, and Anka, whose husbands were murdered by the Nazis and whose families were destroyed by the Holocaust. Yet, even in the shadows, they refused to surrender hope. Pregnant and imprisoned, these women concealed their pregnancies from the infamous Nazi doctor Joseph Mengele and the SS guards who would have killed them and their unborn children. Starved, forced into brutal labor, and living under constant threat of death, they somehow found the strength to continue. As the Third Reich collapsed in the spring of 1945, these women endured a horrific 17-day train journey and the final horrors of Mauthausen concentration camp. Against every conceivable odd, each gave birth to a child. At a moment when death seemed inevitable, a miracle occurred. The gas chambers ran out of Zyklon B, Allied forces approached, and the SS fled. Three mothers and their newborn babies survived. Today, those babies are no longer babies. They are living witnesses to history. They carry within them a story that defies logic, a legacy that reminds us what it means to choose life in the face of unimaginable darkness. In this conversation, we'll explore not only the remarkable journeys of their mothers, but also what it means to grow up carrying such an extraordinary legacy. How does one honor such sacrifice? What lessons do these stories hold for our world today? And how can we ensure that these voices continue to be heard as the generation of survivors passes the torch to their children and grandchildren? This is a conversation about memory, about resilience, family, faith, and triumph of life over death. Please join me in welcoming Mark Olsky and Hana Berger Moran. Welcome. How are you?
We are here. Thank you.
Yes, we are.
Indeed, you are. You know, the question, I'm always thinking, how do I start off an interview? And inevitably what happens is when I finish doing the introduction, there are one or two things that jump out at me. And those are the things that I like to use and lead to my questions. So my opening question to the both of you, and we'll start with Hana. Do you feel different than most people because of where you were born? Has that left a mark on your character in terms of how you see the world, how people see you?
I would say that not necessarily, because I just wanted to be just like everybody else, unless I have to do something that is a little bit different. But frankly, I just feel, yeah, I belong. And especially I belong in my shul.
Very good. Mark?
Yeah, I always thought of myself as basically the standard of normalcy. So, I, whatever whatever my life was what I considered to be normal. Anybody else was different, but no, I never felt like I was different. Um, and well, uh, I I made a transition when at the age of 4. We moved the first 4 years, having no other choice. Actually, we lived in Germany, lived in Munich, uh, and then when I was 4, we finally had the opportunity to move to Israel. So we moved, and now when I was living in Germany, I was a little German boy. I was helping my neighbors. I wasn't sure why we didn't have a Christmas tree, but I helped our neighbors decorate theirs. And uh, then we moved to Israel. And a short time later, I was in kindergarten. And everybody, for a while, everybody was speaking Hebrew. And they were asking me, so how's your Hebrew? Hebrew? No. Uh, what do you mean? Aren't you How do you speak to the other kids in the kindergarten? I said, I've taught them all to speak Yiddish.
That's great. That's great. I like that. I want to get into your stories here. Just to reiterate, my friend Wendy Holden, who is a dear friend of yours, in fact, you call her your sister. She's a world-renowned author, biographer, and she has written somewhere in the area of 61 books or so. I've interviewed her recently. I interviewed her with Eva Clark, who is the third person in the book we speak of called Born Survivors. And all of you were born in the camps, in a camp, concentration camp. That is a fascinating revelation to everybody who hears about it. Whenever I mention the book Born Survivor to friends, to colleagues, to family, they go, "You're kidding. There were kids who were born in the camp and they survived." So Hana, let's start with you. Tell us about the harrowing experience your mother went through, which ultimately led up to her giving birth to you only days before the camp was liberated.
So let me start with the moment when my father and mother were taken to a camp. So they were sitting on the floor of the train car, and my mother is talking about how she will name the baby. If it's a boy, it will be Michael, and if it's a girl, it will be Hanka. And she just kept talking, and my father keeps saying to her, I mean, this I know because my dear mother told me, of course. My father keeps saying, Piri, just be safe. Don't talk about it too much. Just be safe. And my mother, okay. But you okay with those names? They arrived in Auschwitz, and they were separated, of course. And what happened to them was exactly what happened to all the prisoners. The women could shave their head, and they were thrown some clothes after they were standing naked. And when my mother was standing naked in front of Mengele, he comes by and says to her in German, "Also bist du schwanger, frische Frau? Are you pregnant, good-looking woman?" And my mother looks at him and says, "Nein." And he kind of looks her up and down and smiles and keeps on going. And then she was very lucky because she was thrown this big brown woolen coat dress. So even if she would have eaten and there would have been a belly, it would have been covered. And so after a few days, maybe 2 or 3, she saw my father for the last time. She didn't know that it was the last time. And it was across the barbed wire when he was on his mail sign. And he just kept saying, Piri, just be careful. Just think good thoughts. Think good thoughts. I have goosebumps. And my mother said, yes, and I will see you after the war. Well, we know that she didn't. Few days later, she was on the train to Freiburg with other fresche women, fresche Frauen, to work in a factory. The camp was barely built in Freiburg. They walked every day to the factory. And my mother told me that she kept looking at the German children just so I look like a German child, blonde and blue-eyed. Was dark-haired, dark-eyed. As she used to say, I was a really embodiment of the Jewish person. Dark, dark eyes, dark hair, dark skin. Anyway, the last time they didn't know she was pregnant. She didn't tell anybody except one woman who overheard her even on the train. And she lived in Budapest, Edith. And she took care of my mother. She used to bring her food. How she got the food, my mother never found out. And she used to tell her in Hungarian, open mouth. And she just shoved her something in the mouth. And my mother, like Mark's mom too, working in a factory, she was standing those 10 hours a day. And one day, when she opened her coat dress accidentally in a barrack in a camp, another woman saw the belly, as little as it was, but there was the protrusion. And she started screaming,
Yelling.
"You're pregnant! You're gonna get us killed! You're gonna..." And the women guards came running into the barrack, and they asked my mother in German, "Bist du schwanger? Are you pregnant?" And my mother said, "Yes." "Was brauchst du? What do you need?
Yeah.
What do you need?" And my mother said, "I've been standing 10 hours a day. I would love a warm bath for my feet." They brought her a bucket with warm water. And 2 days later, yours truly arrived
Well,
in the factory.
what do you
Is it
attribute these Nazi guards to doing that?
to the front, the Russian front coming from the east, the U.S. front coming, the Western front coming from the west? They saw the writing on the wall. They knew the war is over, and they knew the Germans didn't win it. They will not win it. So they started to do things which will endear them to the prisoners.
Okay.
You know?
I want to hold you there for a second. We're
Okay.
going to pick up on your story in a moment, but let me go to Mark now. First,
Right, please. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry.
No. I'm trying to set up a rhythm here in the interview. Not at all. Everything you say is like a precious gem, Hannah.
Thank you.
Mark, firstly, I want to tell you that in reading the book and in doing my research, both for the Eva Clark interview and for today, I am personally mesmerized by your stories. I really am. As I mentioned at the top of the interview, the idea where you were born and that you eventually went on to lead a beautiful life where you were an emergency doctor. You won a world competition in card games with your wife, and to really reflect some incredible success and confidence in your life. That really blows me away. So firstly, I want to wish you, as they say in Yiddish, Yisher Koach, which is well done, both to you and Hannah.
Toda
Really, so having the resilience to do so, because as one interview said to you, you could have led a life of anger towards the Germans, toward the Nazis. I know, Mark, that when you were 15 years old, you spent an awful lot of time thinking about how to blow up a room full of Germans, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Why don't we get into your story? Tell us the beginnings of your mom's delivery of you.
Well, the very beginning was something at first I was just told you were born on a train. I love trains. I thought, well, that's great. Train. I mean, it's such a romantic thing. Maybe the conductor gave my mother a lollipop for me.
Yes.
I did not picture, and I think that maybe part of it is maybe boys don't picture childbirth the same way that girls might. So as a boy, I really, my mother said, that this thing with uh, babies being uh, brought by a stork. No, that's a bunch of crap. No, uh, you came out of my belly. All right, fine, but on a train, yeah. Uh, much later, and actually, I was in medical school already. I had delivered a baby in somebody's home, and I asked my mother. Uh, there must have been a mess. I mean, I
Yeah.
delivered a baby under very clean and good circumstances, and it was still a bloody mess.
Yes.
Uh, and she said, "Well, yeah, it was a bit." And she described a scene in which, there were like 100 women crammed into this car. There was not enough horizontal space. Other people had to stand. There's 17 days and nights that they're standing, leaning on one another because you can't lie down. She had to lie down, but in lying down, somebody else needed some space too. There was another woman who uh, had a badly injured leg and needed someplace to put her leg, and so they put the there was a woman doctor there, and she had the other woman put her leg on my mother's belly because that was all the horizontal space there was. Uh, and so, anyway, it was just something unimaginable to me to give birth under those circumstances. And as she said, sometimes you just have no choice. And I ran into a lot of that in life, which is sometimes if you only have one option, you take that option.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. But
Now you were actually born on Hitler's birthday, right?
yeah, and then very possible that is one reason that I lived. I mean, this was that was their national holiday for the Nazis. They were happy. They were celebrating. This was a very special and wonderful day for them, and they possibly they thought it was auspicious that this baby born on this wonderful day. So that was my birthday gift. We'll kill him later, not just right now.
Yes. What was the actual birthing situation? What happened there?
The day, well, first of all, I'm not absolutely positive it was the 20th, but I think it was. There was no calendar on the wall, but they said, or my mother was told, yeah, it's Hitler's birthday, it's the 20th. And that was it. I guess they were, and as with any of these messes, the other prisoners were required to help clean up. There were, I guess, some rags around, and they managed to clean things up. Obviously, I have no memory of the event, but within a few hours, my mother she wasn't expecting to have any milk, but she did. And apparently I had my first meal within the first couple of hours.
Tell me, do you believe in miracles? Do you think this is miraculous?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, why I should have had that miracle, and for every one of me or Hana, there were 1,000 that didn't have that miracle.
Yes, true.
So, and that's what my mother said too. Is people said, "Well, aren't you aren't you thrilled that you made it? She said, look, it's like I was in a car with all my family, and we got in a terrible accident, and most of them died. And I was one of the ones that made it. I'm not celebrating the fact that I made it and the rest of them didn't, or some of them, a few of us made it. It was still a terrible, sad, horrible thing. And she also said so much of it was luck. It was just that there's no rhyme or reason. In fact, it's kind of ironic with the title "Born Survivors" because that's the one thing my mother said is there's no such thing. She said, in fact, she said, my husband, Mark's father, if ever I believed that there was such a thing as a born survivor, it was Monik. Monik he could survive anything, and he was the one that didn't survive.
I just want to pick up on something that you just said about those who did not survive. In most camps, especially extermination camps like Auschwitz-Birkenau, pregnant women were usually killed immediately upon arrival. If a pregnancy was discovered later, both mother and baby were often murdered. And I think the distinctive thing, and Hannah, you can pick up on this, about your survival and Eva Clark's survival, all three of you whom are in the book, Wendy Holden's book, Born Survivor, is that it was right at the latter part of the war.
Right.
To the extent that, Mark, you and your mom were taken to the gas chambers, but Cyclone B had run out, which is a phenomenal thing. Now, Hannah, you asked your mom once about your survival, how it is she had the courage to do what she did, to keep carrying on. Now, you were the fourth pregnancy that she had, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So she was tenacious in making sure that her little Hannah would be born, correct?
Well, she usually told me, she said, I really, really, really wanted to have you. Whether it was a boy or a girl, I wanted to have that baby. Because exactly, she lost the 3 pregnancies prior 3 years of the marriage. But she also used to say, and you are so stubborn, and that's why you survived. And then she added something else. You are just as stubborn as your late father, to which I usually said, thank you. So what are you thanking me for? Because I have something from him.
Yes. Yes.
No,
Yes.
what I try to do is not to push her into sadness. Okay? So I was doing the smart assy stuff, okay? Saying things which made her giggle or made her say, okay, enough of this. The bottom line was I was very protective of my mother. I felt that she doesn't have anybody else to protect her. It's me, my job.
I want to go back to the birthing stories themselves. Can you explain in a little detail about the moment your mother gave birth? How did that work?
So she was in a factory, okay, in the middle of working and started to get the pains. And the guards took her downstairs to the basement. And then, as Mom said, some prisoners and guards, they all stood around. It was like a theater. My mother is giving birth, and there are people watching. And apparently, when I came out like this. And one of the women started screaming, a devil was born, because it looked like I'm having, And my poor mother just popped me out, right? and the devil was born. But
Right.
but whenever she didn't go into anymore, but she was very lucky because it was 12th of April 45. As I said, the fronts were coming in from both sides. And so she was taken to the clinic in a camp and for 2 days, and then on a train, and then on to Mauthausen. And the gas was gone and all that. But she always said, every time associated with you being born, we were very, very lucky. And so every time I said to Daraba, Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai. And she remembered when Mark was born, because both moms were in the same wagon, accidentally. And she used to say, well, good, you are not the only one. That's good.
Have you known each other all your lives?
No.
No, you have not, right? Where did the two of you meet?
All three of us met finally in Linz on the way to Mauthausen to celebrate the liberation. We were sitting in a cafe and we were sharing. Did your mother do that? Did your mother say that? And we were laughing our heads off. Our respective partners had to leave because they were so embarrassed. Remember, Mark?
Yeah. Well, it was amazing. Well, first of all, although we were 65 years old, right at 65, and that's when we met for the first time.
Yes.
I remember thinking, well, I knew I was going to meet two women my age, but I never really think about my age that much. And so there are two women in their 60s. Oh, these are the mothers. And wait a minute. No. I'm that old too. They're actually, they obviously look younger than I do, but it still doesn't hit me that, I know that I'm 81 years old, but it somehow just doesn't quite register. But because the time just went by so quickly. But anyway, we met at 65. It was the first time, to some extent, because of the internet, the ability to find people, to connect. My son Charlie connected with the 11th Armored Division people, who were, they're an amazing group of old soldiers who stayed in touch with one another, had a regular newsletter, had regular gatherings, and they kept the memory of all of the memory alive of what they had seen and what they had been part of.
There's an incredible story of one specific sergeant who was considered to be the liberator of Mauthausen. And what fascinated me about this man was his courage and his bravery. He went against instructions which were to secure bridges so that the Allies could go over them. He took it even further. He said, I'm going to go into the camps and I'm going to see what I can do. And he and about another 7 or so soldiers went into the camps, surrounded by about 1,000 German Nazi guards, and ultimately did liberate that camp. Later on in life, he was a barber in Chicago, I think. And what fascinated me about that, Hannah, we talked about this before a bit, you never really know who you're getting your hair cut by, do
That's
you?
right.
Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Who is out there in the world who's done magnificent things, right?
Right. Neither did Pete.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too is these soldiers, and the prisoners who obviously went through a great deal, but they had one option, or well, they either live or die. Basically, those were their two options. Um, but the soldiers, the American soldiers, I think were a unique story because here they are they're young kids. They're 20 years old, give or take. No particular preparation for the situation that they were going to find themselves in. And they're part of a victorious army. They've just been through a bunch of fighting. They've seen their buddies have been, in some cases, injured or killed. And the war is over for them. There's nobody's shooting at them anymore. In just about any war in history at this point, they, at best, they'll put their feet up, have a cold beer, and say, thank God it's over. Maybe even more often, they would start doing some looting and raping and whatever, which is probably more common. It was more common among on the Eastern Front. But this is a group that they looked around, they saw victims, people that they hadn't hurt, that they hadn't expected to see, and they rolled up their sleeve and started becoming caregivers.
Yeah.
This
Yes.
When in any war had that ever happened with the victorious army suddenly becoming caregivers? So they are really just the most special, and this didn't happen on a small scale of just of Leroy Peterson or Sergeant Kosiak. This was everywhere. I have read about, heard about this happening very regularly wherever, and this is especially the American liberators behaved that way. They came from.
I want to say that how important it is, Mark, that you're paying tribute and Hannah to the liberators of the camps, because when you read their stories, you were on the other side. You were a newborn baby. Your mother was there, emaciated. That's what they saw. You know, Sergeant Kozarek talked about it in a piece that he wrote, which you can find online. He passed away in the 80s.
Right.
That he said walked in and he saw this level of human suffering, like you said, Mark, that no one could possibly prepare you for. There were people, he said, who were probably 40 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So, Hannah, I want to pick up on that thought. One of the things that people asked me to ask you was, you said before your mother had milk, that she could breastfeed you. How did, in fact, they manage to keep enough weight up to come to the point of delivering a child? How did your mom do that? What did she tell you?
She never talked to me about it, to tell you the truth. She just said there was this woman, Edith, after I got her name as a second name, and she used to say to her, open mouth. And how she got some food, my mother never found out. But she also decided not to ask, because if she was told open mouth and some food is going to get shoved into her mouth, she was going to take it. And this was in Freiberg still. So the truth is that my mother didn't talk much about the camp. this was one thing that she talked about, and it was being grateful to Edith, whom I met, by the way, and I was in touch. But she was surprised that she even had milk for me, because she was emaciated, and she said, well, it was just water. I mean, I was kilos. When they finally weighed me in Mauthausen, I was kilo 600. So it was the only time I didn't have weight problems.
Can I ask you something, Hannah? What is it like to meet somebody who saved your life or who saved your mother? What is the relationship you have with that person?
So I asked him immediately, can I call you Daddy? And I called him Daddy Pete, Leroy Peterson. When we met, I will send you the picture when we met in Mauthausen. I am kind of holding his leg, and he's just looking at me. It was just, and he told me he couldn't believe it, because the last time he saw me, he was taking me to the army doctor.
Yeah.
And then he had to go to another happening. So he left Mauthausen and did wherever he was asked to go. But he said, when I saw you, I didn't believe you will survive.
You were 3 pounds.
Well,
right?
kilo 600, 3 pounds.
Kilo 600.
Yeah.
And we're talking here about Peter, who was a liberator of the
Right.
camp.
Daddy Pete. Yes. Peterson.
You know
Peterson.
What's fascinating about that story, Hannah, is that when your mom was sick and she had a level of dementia,
right,
she asked you not once, but at least twice, maybe more. She asked you for forgiveness.
Yeah. And it was,
and you had no idea.
What for?
What she was asking. And you asked Peter, one of the liberators. What did he tell you?
He said, he looked down on the floor, and then he said, I think she felt guilty of being pregnant in those circumstances, because she so wanted to have a child after those 3 miscarriages.
Yes.
And when finally it came out of her one day, I said, Mom, I'm so grateful that you did get pregnant, that I met you. I didn't meet my dad, but you said that I look like him, so that's great. Because my mother was dark-haired and dark eyes, as she said, typical Jewish woman,
Yes, of course.
And my father was blonde and blue-eyed and tall. You see their picture behind me, right?
I do. It's a lovely picture. I want to add one thing, Hannah, again, which I found through my research. When the liberators came in, they said to your mother, we need to take your baby because she's not well.
Right.
And I think, tell me if I'm correct here, your mother felt guilty about giving you up for those few days.
Yeah,
and you were one of the first people, one of the first citizens, not army people, but citizens who were given it slips
penicillin.
my mind. Penicillin. I'm sorry. Yes, penicillin. Right.
That's right. And my mother, and actually Daddy Pete told me, he was so surprised because when he said this baby is quite sick, and I can take her, and he was with a Red Cross, on his helmet, and he took me to the army doctor, who was his boss. But they saved my life. The penicillin saved my life.
Unbelievable.
I got it then in 1945, in May 1945. Anyway, so Mother just said I was so grateful. And when they brought me back the next day, it was another nurse, different nurse, a woman, and she was crying. She was holding me and crying. And my mother asked her, my mother told me, is she dead? Is she dead? And the nurse said, no, she's asleep. But I am so touched. And then she told my mother, and she got penicillin. And it just was authorized to be administered. It was not openly available yet, but the
Yeah.
penicillin saved my life. Period.
Penicillin
You
was
two are
penicillin was discovered in 1941 in the middle of the war, and
right.
so the first few, it took a couple of years before it could be even mass produced or produced in quantity, and nearly all of the penicillin that was produced for military use
Right.
So yes,
so
yes.
Hana was probably one of the first civilians anywhere uh, who got penicillin.
Yeah.
Yeah, this story just keeps on giving, I must
Yeah.
tell you. Mark, let's take it forward a little bit. So you're a little guy, and as a little feller, in the way that little people think, you start to realize, wait a second here, I don't have grandparents. Aunts, all my friends have aunts and uncles. I don't. So you approach your mom, you asked her, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I also didn't have brothers or sisters, and then I was not happy about that either. Um, but uh, well, I should. uh, this was true until I was 4 years old. Once I was in Israel, I was living among a lot of Holocaust survivors, and so there were a lot of kids missing grandparents, missing parents. Um, so actually, my life was not that different than some of the other kids that I ran into. Some of the kids that I ran into uh, had actually come from British concentration camps in Cyprus because they tried to enter Palestine before it became Israel, before it was legal to enter, and they were actually removed and put into what amounts to really enclosed camps with barbed wire. I mean, nobody was killing them, but just uh, well, just to just getting back to the idea, uh, my my family being pretty decimated with very few aunts and uncles, very few and no grandparents. Not that unusual for the kids I grew up with.
Yes, indeed. And Hannah, I think that was something that you dealt with as well. Amongst other questions, one of the things that you heard as a little person was the phrase a dirty Jew, right? And you went to your mom with that. What did your mom say to you when you asked her what that was?
And she said, don't pay any attention to that. You are not dirty. The people just don't like Jews because they think that we killed Jesus, which we didn't. It was the Romans. So whenever I was accused of being the Jew that killed Jesus, I said, no, we didn't. It was the Romans. It was the Roman army. And at which point they just shut up. That was it. And we did have a Christmas tree. My mother was a
Did you?
teacher. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We did have a Christmas tree, and we had it against the window. So people walking on the street can see it. And because my late uncle, my mother's uncle, he was my great uncle, he was a physician in a hospital. He survived by being a physician in a in a sanatoria where the Garda and Germans were afraid to go that they will get tuberculosis. They were scared to get tuberculosis. And that's what my great uncle was the physician of. He was treating tuberculosis patients. Anyway, so we moved in with him because I was a sickly kid, no surprise. But we did have a Christmas tree. We did have a Christmas tree, and it was, as I said, without the star, without anything. And mother said, It's just so they leave you alone, so they don't say, "Oh, why didn't you have a Christmas tree?"
I happen to I love Christmas trees, by the way.
It is pretty. It is pretty, and it
We didn't have
smells
one. My
good,
father was around.
Yeah.
and it
Well,
Yeah,
smells good.
they smell like. I want to move forward with your lives here because, as I said before, your story just continues to give. There's one fascinating point after another. You, Hannah, you went on to become quite successful as a scientist. And at the root of your career was the idea, was this belief, was this desire that you wanted to help people. So you were part of, I think, the development of somewhere in the area of 15 medicines,
Yeah.
which ultimately went to market and indeed make people's lives better. It's fascinating to me where you came from, your desire to do good for other folks, and a belief in the goodness of humankind and our ability to create. You ever look back on your life and say, hey, it could have gone a completely different direction?
No, when my mother asked me when I was in the 10th grade, sorry, I'll take it back, in the 9th grade, and she said, "Okay, Hannah, start thinking. Where are you going to go to university? You go into medicine, right?" And my answer
Yes.
was, there's plenty of Jewish doctors already.
Yeah.
This is in Czechoslovakia, okay? And my mother said, "Oh, you're so arrogant." I said, "Mom, but I just had chemistry for the first time in 8th grade. And this was in the 9th grade when she was talking to me. And I said, I fell in love with chemistry. I want to make medicines. I want to create medicines. That will be my way of paying back." I said, "You will change your mind." Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
I went to a technical university in Bratislava, studied organic chemistry, stinky stuff. That's what I used to call it. And then continued because I am not, it was just driving me to give back. I just wanted to give back because I wanted to give back. There is no because. That was what I wanted to
Bottom line.
do. That was what I
Yes.
wanted to do. It was important to me. And by the way, what I'm wearing, my mother is with me here. That was her
Lovely.
scarf.
Lovely.
Whenever I talk about her, I wear it.
Lovely. Mark, your story is equally as compelling. I love how you tell about that the letters from the medical school began to arrive at your home, and your family was shouting and screaming throughout the house. He's going to go to medical school. He's going to go to medical school, right?
yeah. Yes. They, well, for them, uh, this was the ultimate. In Jewish tradition.
Right.
Uh, if you if you have the opportunity to go into medicine, it is that that's the highest thing you could aspire to. Um, and in my mind, yeah, that's fine. I'm happy. I'm looking forward to it. Uh, but and actually, it turned out, and I've had friends. It's kind of sad. People who were um, talented physicians um, did not happen to enjoy the practice of medicine. Didn't really. I. Uh, it just wasn't good for them. For me, it was. I found, hey, I, I, I didn't have any doctors in my family previously. I didn't have anyone to. Well, I mean, I had we had a family doctor that I admired, but it wasn't really. It didn't give me a clear idea of what my life would be like. And then it was, hey, I love this. This is just.
Yeah.
It's challenging. It's enjoyable. I learned a lot of stuff. I learned not only about chemistry and physiology and anatomy. I learned a lot about people. So it was terrific. So I really can't say,
Yeah.
I never sacrificed anything to do it because it was like, it was simply, it wasn't enjoyable every minute. There were a lot of tragedies and things, but uh, but uh, uh, someone says, "Well, you did this for humanity." No, I really did it for myself. The fact that it did some good for other people, great. But I'm not going to claim that.
You enjoyed it. You enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But you were one of those Michigan doctors who decided that you were going to be in the emergency ward, which is crazy. I know emergency docs, and they are all driven human beings,
A lot of, yes. Well, I came from a different time in emergency medicine. We didn't have such a thing as training people to become emergency physicians. I was really on the ground floor where a bunch of us who were trained in other things, because I didn't have the opportunity to go into an emergency medicine residency. There was no such thing. I went into internal medicine and pulmonary disease, and then and along the line spent a lot of time in the emergency room practicing. And at some point, somebody said, "Hey, why don't you actually start a residency program and train doctors to become full-time emergency medicine?" Sure, why not? And it was sort of a frontier of, and we had no idea what kind of students would want to, and there was no guarantee that it would become a recognized specialty. So we didn't know what was going to happen. What happened almost immediately was we got some of the best students from the medical schools immediately wanted to go into emergency medicine. And so within about 3 years of starting our residency in emergency medicine, you had to be in the top 5-10% of your medical school class to get an interview. So we had students, residents, who
the best
they were smarter than the faculty.
Again, I have to say that so much of your life has a pioneering component to it. Now, I want to read you something special, and I shared this a little bit with Hana before we went to air today. I did a little research into what are a few things that a baby means to a mother. And I obviously, I did this for obvious reasons. You were born in concentration camps. Your mothers put their lives at risk, put your life at risk. And the question is, why? What is the importance of a child to a mother? Let me just read a couple of things to you. Hana, we'll start with you. Just tell me if this resonates with you. The first one is love made visible. A baby is love that you can touch, you can hold, you can see. So you're imagine this, Hana. Your mother's giving birth to you in a crazy environment, and there in her hands, she's holding love. It is the transformation of feeling into form, an emotional bond that becomes immediate, physical, and profound. Does that resonate with you, Hana? A baby's love you can touch.
Yes, very much so. And as you were reading it, I could feel Tommy after he was
your son.
Yeah, after
son,
he was
Tommy.
born. Oh, okay.
You know, the funny thing, you told me an amazing story, is that when Tommy was born, this was in Israel,
Right.
and you realized at the time that he was born, you had a name for a little girl, but you didn't have a name for a little boy. So you start to laugh your head off, and the nurse turned to you and slapped you because she thought you were being manic.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Mark, you've given You've helped women give birth. Here's another thing that a child means to a baby. And again, we put this in the context of your mother, God bless her soul, giving birth to you in a concentration camp. One of the things that a baby means to a mother, it gives a sense of purpose. A child often becomes a mother's central responsibility and focus. Caring, protecting, and nurturing bring a deep sense of meaning and a direction to her life. I'm wondering if your mom must have been harboring that feeling, Mark,
Oh,
giving her a sense of
absolutely.
meaning in such a crazy time.
Absolutely. In that, there was never any doubt in my mind that um, I was her most important person. Uh, she had her husband. Um, she had people that she worked with and loved, but uh, I was really the focus of her being, the thing that she just did a lot, including just starting a store, working 12, 15 hours a day to make sure that my future was secure. Uh, and
And that you were happy. And that you were happy. She made sure you were happy.
oh yeah,
Absolutely.
You talked
absolutely.
about that in another interview. And I'm sitting back and thinking, I know a lot of survivors. And I must tell you, a lot of survivors are not happy people,
Mm,
and their children are not happy.
mm.
But your mom, Mark, made every effort to make sure that you would live a happy life, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think she went overboard. Uh, it, and safety as well, because
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I, uh, as an adult, well, and this is, she was in that concentration camp with her three sisters. As it happens, there was a wedding in the family. At this point, I had been a physician for over a dozen years, um, and had children. Uh, so, my cousins, each of her sisters had children. They were my cousins. They were all professional and doing well. We're in San Francisco for a wedding, and several of us were going to just go to a nightclub, and three mothers were, oh my God, you're going to, this is a big city, you're not going, you won't be safe.
Yeah.
Uh, they were, and I didn't at the time. I didn't quite I had children, but they were still pretty young. But now I understand.
Now
Because
you get it.
now I get it. But the idea that you're this the risk of going out into the big city as a 40-year-old. Uh, but
Yes, I get it.
anyway,
I hear you.
so yeah, it was uh, definitely wanted to keep me safe, keep me happy, um, make just see to it that I was not subject to the kinds of risks and painful things that she was. And I really should say that for both my parents. My father was not my biological father, but he was my father in every other way. And that's and I'll tell you something very intimate, but kind of should tell you the story. I was circumcised when I was 4 years old. Why wait till I was 4 years old? Because they never believed that the Holocaust was the last pogrom.
Mm.
And they thought if there is to possibly be another Holocaust, another pogrom, and they're going to kill Jewish kids, which they thought could always happen, let's make sure, if we have to pretend he's not a Jew, at least we'll make sure that he's alive.
Yes.
And so, and strangely enough, it was literally on the eve of moving from Munich to Israel that they finally decided, okay, it's safe to do this. We'll have we can have a bris. And when I was in school in Israel, there were other kids with parents, same situation, only they hadn't even gotten to that point. There was a kid in my class who was not circumcised, and he was it was actually pretty mean, but the other kids called him the onion.
Well,
uh,
thank you for sharing that story, though. Thank you. I appreciate it.
but yeah,
Hannah, I want to ask you in conclusion, we're talking about the different things that a baby means to their mother. And obviously, this is in the context of your mom and of Mark's mother, both who were courageous women with dreams and visions of having a child. One of the things that a child means to a mother is the participation in creation. A mother does not simply give birth, she participates in the mystery of creation. A baby can feel like a fragment of the infinite placed into her care, a reminder that life emerges from beyond human control or full understanding. It often awakes a sense of awe. And with that, I'd just like to ask you, this is sort of a godly definition of what a child means to a mother. Did God play a role in your story?
I am certain of it. I am totally certain of it. And that's how my mother felt too. With everything that was going on, from the moment that they were loaded to the train in Bratislava and going on, and she being pregnant and trying to hide it. Then she gets this big brown dress, coat dress. It's too big. That was going to hide it. And the fact that she actually gave birth and survived it. Yeah. Every time I think about it, I say, thank you, dear God. There is so much I have to give back. And that's how I felt when I went to study organic chemistry, making medicines to give back. That was my way of giving back. And especially when I managed to convince the Food and Drug Administration people and also the Russian organization and the German one and the English one, when I convinced them that the products are safe and are going to help. And it used to be hilarious because they said to me later on, they said, Hana, you were the only regulatory person that we really felt that you were involved. And I was, of course, I was involved. I didn't tell them my history, but I said, of course, I want to help. And so that has been, like Mark talked about his life, that has been my way of living, giving back, helping, giving back, because I am here. And my mother would say, because you're stubborn.
Yeah, you're here and you're stubborn. That's not a bad formula.
She said, because you're stubborn.
Because you're stubborn, yes. Mark, did God play a role in your story?
I believe so. I look at my story and other stories that could have been that didn't materialize. So I do sometimes ask myself, why me? But I believe that God had some sort of plan in there, and I've tried to be worthy of it. But anyway, so the answer is yes. There's a reason for everything that happens, everything that has and will happen. And it's not mine to question why so much was done for me and what I can do for others.
The thing that comes to mind in conclusion is that you are two very, very lovely people
Thank you.
with incredible stories, really special successes. And with that, I wish you, as they say in Jewish, Yeshikoach, well done.
תודה רבה.
But the other thing, the thing that occurs,
תודה.
Bevakasha, you're welcome. The other thing that occurs to me is, as I hear your stories, I think about the Jewish people who were lost in the Holocaust and the other people who were lost in the Holocaust, the Roma, and other people who have been lost throughout history, like through Kampuchea and so on. And you think about how many Hanas did we lose?
Many.
How many Marks did we lose?
No.
How many brilliant, lovely, caring, empathetic, sensitive, resilient human beings have we lost to war, to Holocaust, to genocide?
That's right.
And that is a great, great tragedy. But I don't want to end on that. I want to end on something which I've been doing for many months now, which I've asked AI to develop a poem for my guests, about my guests. So I have what is called Ode to Mark and Hana. And here we go. Before they spoke a word, before they took a breath, before they knew the warmth of sunlight or the comfort of parents' embrace, the world had already declared that they should not live. The trains groaned through a dying Europe, their iron wheels carrying sorrow, their wooden cars crowded with hunger, fear, and the ashes of civilization. Yet hidden amongst the suffering were three mothers, Priska, Rachel, and Anka, women robbed of husbands, parents, brothers, sisters, homes, and dreams. Women who had every reason to surrender to despair, but they did not. Within their fragile bodies, they carried a secret rebellion, the beating hearts of unborn children. They hid swollen bellies from the gaze of Mengele. They concealed life from a machine built for death. And somehow, through Auschwitz, through slave labor, through starvation, through 17 endless days on a death train, they endured. And as the Third Reich crumbled, as evil began its final retreat, a miracle quietly unfolded. The gas chambers fell silent. The poison ran out. The killers fled. And where death expected victory, life arrived instead. And among those newborn cries were two voices that would echo through history, Mark Olsky, Hana Berger Moran, and we should add Eva Clark. Children born not merely into the world, but into a testimony. Mark, born on a cattle train racing toward Mauthausen, would one day heal strangers as an emergency room physician, saving lives with the same determination that had once saved his own. Hana, carried through Auschwitz, through labor camps, through terror beyond imagination, would grow into a scientist, an educator, a builder of medicines, turning survival into blessing. Neither knew their fathers, stolen by Nazi cruelty, yet both inherited something stronger than hatred. From their mothers, they learned that survival is not revenge, that memory is not bitterness, that courage is choosing life again and again and again. Today, they stand before us not as victims, but as witnesses, living proof that evil can wound, but it cannot always win, living proof that a mother's love can defy an empire, living proof that even in humanity's darkest night, a spark of hope remains. And so we listen. For one day, the survivors will no longer be here, but their voices, their memories, their sacred stories must remain. Because every time Mark speaks, Rachel lives. Every time Hannah remembers, their mother lives. And every time we tell their story, the Jewish people live. Born in the shadow of death, they become guardians of life. Born amid destruction, they became builders of hope. Born survivors, forever survivors.
This is amazing,
beautiful.
Avrum. That's beautiful.
That's for you.
Oh,
That's for
Avrum,
you. That's
thank
for
you.
And for
Honey,
Eva.
do you think, could you send me that?
Yes,
Would
yes, I
you be so
will.
kind?
And me as well.
course.
Yes.
I had
Of course,
goosebumps.
of course I will. Of
Beautiful.
course I will. Last questions before we go.
Okay.
And let's start with Mark. Mark, there's anti-Semitism today in the world. It seems to be rife. What's your message out there for Jews and non-Jews alike fighting that disease that's cropped up again?
Yeah. There to paraphrase Anne Frank, there is decency everywhere in the vast majority of people, including those who are anti-Semitic. And so I think the thing that we need to do is find a way to connect with that decency, and because anti-Semitism is, every kind of bigotry is the antithesis of decency. And so, we need to find, and that's really the biggest challenge, is to find a way to connect people with the decency that is within them. I don't think we can create.
Yes.
I don't think we can create decency where it doesn't exist.
That's
But
right.
sometimes we can wake it up where it's asleep.
Nicely said. Nicely said. Hannah,
When,
what do you say to the Jew and the non-Jew out there as anti-Semitism flourishes?
I think that we are not to focus on that. What we have to do is take very good care of ourselves and our families, and not to be embarrassed to admit who we are. And if there is anti-Semitism in our face, we just turn away with a smile and go away from it. And what we have to do is what I say always to my family and my friends: think only good thoughts.
Yes.
Think
that's
only
lovely.
good thoughts. Because being taken and absorbed by unhappiness and frustration and depression is not going to help anyone. And at the same time, I am not saying that we should be walking around saying, I'm so great. That doesn't help anyone either. But we should know who we are. And if there is somebody who is hating us, we just walk away from them. And that's it. That's how I feel.
Your mother saw your father for the last time, or one of the last times, on the other side of the fence, and your father said that exact same thing to your mother: have good thoughts.
Think only
Have
good thoughts.
Think only good thoughts.
And that's what she used to tell me too, especially when I
Think
say,
only
Mom, I have this exam. Go study and think good thoughts. You will come across. It will be good.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Mom.
Thank you. I really enjoyed schmoozing with you
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you so much.
We are honored.
It's great.
I felt honored, Avrum. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm
Amen.
the honored one, and the people who view this interview are the honored ones, because your story is so incredibly inspiring, and you're two. And I don't want to be trite about this, but to me, you're two happy people, as Eva Clark is. The three of you who were written about by Wendy Holden in her book, Born Survivors. And I think that if people want to get a positive view of humankind, and of the Jewish people. It's a really good book to read and really worthwhile. And you can find it on Amazon and every other
Right.
major
Yeah.
outlet.
Right.
Mark, thank you for being with us.
Thank
Hannah,
you.
thank you for being.
Thank you, Avrum. Thank
You
you so much.
God bless you. You should be well, as we say in Jewish, till 120. And we're very grateful for what you have brought to our
Stay safe.
existence.
Above all,
Yes.
stay safe, both of you and your
Stay safe.
families.
Amen.
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 My mother of blessed memory used to say "Sei gesund," which means go in good health.
That's right.
And
Sei gesund.
Sei
You're right.
gesund.
Sei gesund.
Nachon.
Until we meet again, thank you so much for being
Bye-bye.
with us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And
Say hi to your
take
family.
care.
Bye-bye.
Will do. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
Marky. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.